Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in to the community show yet once again. Thank you very much for being friends and lovers of Civic Space TV. And as this conversation begins and continues to run, please feel free to subscribe to the Civic Space channel on YouTube. Feel free to put your comments on the comment section and let us know what you think needs to be done, but also let us know your comments regarding this particular conversation. It's yet another week, and we are here, like I promised you last week, that this conversation is centered around issues of the community. And this particular episode is centered around the people of Kasese. Kasese, this episode belongs to you and shall be understanding issues within your respective sub-counties or the district as a whole. To the viewers who are tuning in for the first time, my name is Kidega Moses, and I do moderate the conversation on the community show. Let me take this opportunity to introduce the panelists who have managed to spare the time to be with us today and who will be enabling us digest and understand our conversation this very minute. First and foremost, let me introduce the local council 3 chairperson of Nyakiyubu sub-county in Kasese. Mr. Chairperson, you're most welcome. Please feel free to say hello to our viewers.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, brothers.
Wow, thank you very much, and many thanks for joining us and being on time. We are also glad to be joined by Mr. Francis Happy Muhindo. Francis is a Peace and Conflict Manager with Kabarole Research Center, Uganda. Francis, many thanks for joining us, and we look forward to hearing from you. Please feel free to say hello to our viewers.
Thank you, Mr. Moses, and the viewers and other listeners. I love being with you this afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Comrade Francis. The third panelist who has joined us right on time is Mr. Kule Joakim. Kule is a human rights defender and activist. Kule, many thanks for joining us. Please feel free to say hello to our viewers.
Hello to our viewers. I would like to say Happy New Year to you, and also to Mr. Kidega. Owing to the fact that you have been in a pandemic, we thank God that we have come far and we have reached. I wish you a very nice celebration in this meeting. Yes, I'm humbled to be here.
Thank you very much, Comrade Kule Joakim. I am also informed that the other 2 panelists have not yet joined us, but we hope that in the near future, they will be able to join us. And that is Mr. Masereka Joshua, who is the Deputy RDC of Kasese District. We expect him to join us anytime from now. But also we expect Alice Natukunda, who is a warden at the Community Conservation of Rwenzori Mountains National Park. We expect them to join us anytime from now. But in the meantime, we can begin our conversation right away. Ladies and gentlemen, our conversation today is going to focus on the district of Kasese. It is common knowledge that human beings have rights, but also animals have rights. The idea is that human beings and animals must be able to coexist for there to be harmony on the planet. When the rights of animals are infringed, I can assure you that conflict shall arise, but also when the rights and spaces of human beings are infringed by animals, there also will be a source of conflict. And that is why it is ideal practice to create national reserves for wild animals so that they can have their space and also not infringe on the space of human beings. That is one of our topics for today as we cast a light on Kasese district. But secondly, we also know that Kasese has a river called River Nyamwamba, whose banks keep on bursting from time and again. And each time that happens, we know that people are misplaced, people lose their settlements, people lose their plantations, people lose their sources of livelihood, among other disruptive effects. We shall also be shedding a light onto that particular aspect of this particular district. Then the third and last is the aspect of human conflict. We know that Kasese has had challenges in terms of political and human conflict. We know for sure that the Rwenzori Kingdom, had those challenges in the past. And I hope that we shall have a snippet of that as well. Ladies and gentlemen, let us go straight and dive into this conversation. And Let me begin from someone who I believe is more close to the people of Kasese than any of us, and that is the local council chairperson 3 of Nyakiyubu sub-county, Mr. Sunday Peter Kakule. I am going to invite you to give us.
Yes, sir.
I am going to invite you to give us the opening remarks and opening statements. What exactly is happening in Kasese regarding floods, regarding the wildlife, and also in terms of conflict? Give us a general perspective of those 3 aspects. Then we shall pick up from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kuga. I'm very grateful for joining this wonderful discussion. My fellow panelists, thank you for joining us. Once again, I'm Sunday Peter Kule, one of the biggest counties in the Kasese district. It's a county that really is being faced by all the 3 challenges you have mentioned: the floods, the problem animal issue, issues. Mainly has 7 parishes, but 3 of them border the national park, that's Elizabeth National Park, that also border the national park in Garasi. So, Mr. Kidega and all the viewers, as far as the floods in Kasese, it is a very big challenge. Whenever it comes to the rainy season, most of the rivers that flow from Mount Rwenzori to the lowlands, entering the 2 lakes, that's Lake George and Lake Edward, most of them do overflood. And through that process, there is a negative effect whereby we lose lives, most of our people lose lives, domestic properties are destroyed, and other workplace.
Yes, Mr. Peter. Are you done? I think your network was somehow shaky, so I could have lost you.
Yes, sir.
Had you completed your submission?
I was completing with the issue of the problem animals. This is a big challenge in the district and the national park, and about the Rwenzori National Park have a negative effect about this. What I was trying to say was the issue of the human problem animal conflict in Kasese district, which is one of the biggest challenges that has led to the economic empowerment of our people behind, whereby we are surrounded by the 2 big national parks, that's Queen Elizabeth National Park and the Mount Rwenzori National Park. But one of the national parks, which is Queen, after is the one causing a lot of problems to the communities. Why I'm saying this? Most of our people derive their livelihood on the lower part of the district that neighbor Queen Elizabeth National Park. They grow a lot of crops near the park, but the end result that problem animals do erodes and they destroy their crops. So this one has caused a negative impact on their livelihood.
Okay, thank you very much, our LC3 chairperson. I am definitely going to get back to you shortly with more questions. But for now, let me go to Mr. Francis Happy Muhindo. Francis, you are a peace and conflict manager. Yes, you're based in Kabarole, but I believe that you can offer us insights with the issue happening in Kasese. Now, there seems to be an emerging conflict between the people living in Kasese and the animals. There seems to be a scramble for partition of the land resource and other natural resources like maybe water and things like that. Could this be an emerging serious conflict between wild animals and the people of Kasese? And if so, what do you think could be the major cause behind this? On to you, Francis.
Thank you so much, Moses and my colleagues on the panel. This is a fundamental question that you posed. If I can look at the geographical setup of Kasese district, we'll find out that most of the land in Kasese district is literally literally utilized by is literally gazetted, if I may say. You will find on the lower side we have Queen Elizabeth National Park, which is a big area, and then we also have Chibale National Park spreading to Kasese still in the areas of Karsandara. So all that land is reserved. Then we have game reserves still, and then we have rivers which take also a lot of land, and we have lakes on the lower side and also on the upper side. And then on the upper side we also have Mount Rwenzori National Park and the mountain itself. So these reserves, these gazetted areas make a take a bigger percentage of the land in Kasese. And so the people of Kasese live in a small corridor, which they use for agriculture and other domestic and all commercial engagements and all investments. Now, here comes the Queen Elizabeth National Park, which harbors a lot of dangerous animals. We talk of the leopards, elephants, which have from the park itself to the land, and these animals have been killing people in these areas. Much as government is putting up interventions like erecting a live fence, but killing people to prey on a young boy in Hamkungu. So even when we have these national parks harboring animals, the lake itself, this is Lake George and Lake Edward, are also harboring crocodiles, which are also preying on people. So there is conflict between people living around protected areas, that is the game reserves and the national park, but we also have conflicts between people and the fisheries authorities, the beach management units. And these issues have come on not only once, but animals have preyed on people over and over. And you know, when it comes to issues of compensation, it is a long story. I know there is a compensation policy that UWA has worked on. I pray that that the policy is ratified, is endorsed, assented to by the president, so that it is fully functionalized. Otherwise, when people kill an animal, it is a very big offense. When an animal kills a person, it is something that is workable. And this is the dilemma that people are living in, especially in Kasese. The areas of Kanyangeya in Kasese town, which are on the sides of the Nyamwamba River, and then you spread to Katwe, Kabatoro, Town Council, and then some parts of Komuruti in Katoro, in Nyakiyubu sub-county. People have lost lives because of animals. Much as people go poaching, but even those who are in their own homes, not only animals, not only people, but even wild animals have gone ahead to attack herds of cattle in Nyakatonzi sub-county, for example. So it is one thing that is growing. And the reason is people live in a small corridor, so people fight for space. People fight for space as animals do fight for space. So there is need for an intervention by the relevant authorities. We come to the floods. We are talking about Nyamwamba, which has created a name for itself by flooding. Almost every rainy season will have Nyamwamba sweeping very many homesteads. But there are also small rivers which flood. Of recent, we have a river towards the border. It is called Bukangara. It separates Nyakiyubu, I think, from Munkunyu. It flooded and swept away very many homes. It could be one of the smallest rivers, but swept away very many homes. We have a river that is at the border of Mpondwe, at Mponde, that is Rubiria, that separates Uganda from Congo. It also flooded the other time, and we made a comprehensive report. We lost over 30 plus people and many homes. So there are a lot of conflicts. There are a lot of human conflicts which we shall of course talk about. But the natural hazards are misplacing people from their ancestral homes, and people are living in camps, and others are being hosted by their own relatives in some other places. And for your information, Moses and the viewers and the listeners, land in Kasese town, especially Kasese municipality, the Nyamwamba division, is losing value. Someone can even give you a plot of land with a very good house at 2.5 million or even 1.7. Someone can even decide and desert the area and leave it, and you just take it over if you so wish, because they know the next time again it will flood. So land has depreciated in Kasese, especially in Nyamwamba division, then Bulendia, which is Kilembe, and then entirely Kilembe sub-county. I beg to submit.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Happy. I must say that was very elaborate. I'm going to come back to you shortly, more so regarding the argument of the policy. You say there is a compensation policy that is being worked upon. I'm going to bring you back shortly. Please help us get some more information around that particular policy. I'm going to pick your mind on it once again. But for now, let me go to Mr. Kule Joakim. Kule Joakim, you are a human rights defender. But the argument here isn't only about the rights of human beings, but also about the rights of animals. So you are someone who is focused on defending the rights of human beings. Where does this leave us, with the animals? Because we need these animals as well. They are a source of tourism attraction, which is in turn a source of foreign trade for the country. They bring in foreign exchange into the country. So we need them as much as they need us. But people like you only care about the rights of human beings. So what is your say regarding the conflict between wild animals and the people? But also, what do you have to say about the floods and emerging human conflict in Kasese?
Thank you so much, Mr. Kidega Modis, and my fellow panelists, Mr. Happy Francis, in fact, has alluded much to the subject, much to the topic that we are discussing today. Thanks for allowing me to also add my voice to the topic of today. In the first place, I must consent that indeed, wildlife is one of the tourism earners in this country. And as you know, tourism is one of the highest income earners for this country. I was just appreciating you for giving me an opportunity to give my comments about wildlife. And first of all, I was saying wildlife is one of the top income earners in this country. As a country, we earn a lot from tourism. And that gives us actually a very big need for us to protect wildlife. But also there is a need for the government to come in and also protect people. In 2020, we have had issues where wild animals have eaten people. I personally have been in like 2 burials of people who have been eaten by lions and crocodiles. And then we just bury and it ends from there. But then the question is there a compensation plan for these people? These people have dependents. They die, we bury, and then the dependents remains with nothing. So now, when you have lost your family member, maybe due to crocodile or an animal eating him, the next day you will also want to go and kill that crocodile or lion. So that increases the level of wildlife human conflict in Kasese. But I think if we must reduce conflict, there is a need for us to bridge a gap, to level the ground, to put in place policies that favors both the people that are living near the national parks and also the wild animals themselves. I must confess to you that some of the policies that we are using currently, they are policies, especially for the national park and conservation, they are policies that were formed when the population in Kasese was very small. So people before were settling on the toplands of Kasese. They are not on the flatlands where there are wild animals. But currently, because of high population on the land and population pressure, there are very many people who are now staying on the flatlands of Kasese, and most of them are near national parks. Now, this brings in a question of compensation. People plant their crops, and then the crops are eaten by wild animals, and there is no compensation at all. So I think there is a need for us to formulate a policy that at least will put government accountable for the loss of life, especially of people who are eaten by animals, and also the loss of crops. So there is a need to harmonize the peace between the animals and also the people. I think if we work on that, we shall be able to stimulate the level of development in Kasese. Yeah, I beg to submit, Mr. Ega.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kule. I see you've also hinted on the aspect of policy, but what I picked from your submission that to me caught my attention is that you said that the population increase in Kasese has somehow forced the human beings or the people there to look for settlement and to look for more land. And in this sense, they have gone ahead to maybe encroach on the maybe land that was initially occupied by animals, or that was initially occupied by other maybe natural inhabitants, like maybe the water bodies and things like that. And hence that has been a source of conflict. Was that right?
You know, in fact, people have not encroached on the land that belongs to the national park. Now, what happens here is, you know, before people had their land, very big chunks of land that was legally owned by the people. But people were not settling there. People were not farming on that land simply because that land was considered as land, first of all, that was near national park and was therefore a threat, was very secure for staying there. But due to high population on the upper land, now people are going to the land that initially belonged to them before. That land belonged to them, but they were not staying down there on the flatlands, simply because the population was not high on the upper land. And now currently we're having a situation where people are moving from the upper land to the downland. And now they are planting there their crops. Some of them, they are staying there. Now we find animals coming from the national park and then eating banana plantation for people on the flatland. And there is no compensation at all. Now, currently, if you must get a compensation from the wildlife, you would need to go to the courts of law. But you and me do understand that most of the people may not be able to access the legal services, simply because the legal services are very expensive to get. A person like my grandmom, who is a peasant, perhaps may not be knowing even where the district is, where he can put his application for compensation. So I think there is a need for the authority and the government to come on board and then formulate a policy that demands that government must compulsorily whom their crops have been destroyed. Because that legal services are a preserve of people, at least who can afford court fee or legal fee, which most of our peasants cannot afford.
Thank you, Kule. Fair enough. That has been quite elaborate. Let me come to you, our local council 3 chairperson, Mr. Sunday Kakule. Sunday, River Nyamwamba floods Kasese almost every year. But it looks like even when we know that River Kasese will flood, as leaders, we don't prepare the people enough. We don't ask them to evacuate those areas where we expect the river to flow and then to wash people's livelihoods. So my question to you is, what is the role, what role are you playing as leaders in local government to prepare people in terms of fighting this disaster or mitigating its negative effects? Because River Nyamwamba bursts its banks every rainy season, every year in, year out. We know it now. But still, year in, year out, people still lose their livelihoods, people lose their properties. So as local leaders of Kasese, are you doing enough to educate people? Are you doing enough to educate the masses regarding the need for them to maybe, evacuate such areas or prepare them, to avert the effects of this flooding? So speak to the role of local leaders in Kasese regarding the fight against floods.
And once again, Mr. Francis, thank you for the elaborate explanation you gave. As local leaders, we have done our part. You see, that is a process. And whenever it says the members, all of them understand at the same rate. Because right now, we are come March, when rain starts, the river must flood. Otherwise, we are educating our masses about the negative effect of the floods. I'm happy the district planner, that is the technical team of the district, is doing its role to see that the committee members understand that whenever it comes to such a period, people need to relocate. But the challenge we have said that is the limited land where people can settle. Most of the land is being occupied by government, whereby we are getting government to see that they degazette part of the government land, like prison land. We have one in there. See that really people living adjacent to these rivers are relocated. It's not only number floods. We have river Ruria, river Control here, river Chanzi, so we have a lot that we are doing to see that really our people are relocated. For instance, we have a group of people that are staying in Muhocha town council. They were hit by floods in Kanyangea, that's the division, and the government has done its part to see that we get land that where they can be settled. But most of our people are adamant. They want to, we tell them to relocate others from their places in the towns that are staying. Those places are suitable for human settlement. For instance, that Kanyangea place, it's originally known for sand mining, but people have moved an extent of settling near the river bank that are looking for settlement, but they don't have where to stay. Due to the population pressure, people are struggling for land. So as government, we have to see that really one, we keep on assessing the community members so that they really understand the negative effects. Then secondly, the desilting process is in the pipeline. River Nyamwamba, there is an Egyptian company that brought in the bulldozers that was doing the desilting of the river, so that government is instituting a process whereby the Egyptian company has that the desilting process of River Nyamwamba from the source up to the last place where river enters Lake George, the place is desilted. Then secondly, we are trying to do the river bank management, whereby we are introducing the system of planting bamboo along the river banks. The district has has got money whereby we're going to procure bamboo, which will be planted along all the rivers in the district, so that it will act as a mitigation measure to control the flood.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Peter.
Yeah,
Those are yes, we got you very well, and thank you very much. Those were very good points and good suggestions. I will come back to you shortly. For now, let me go back to Mr. Francis. Francis, happy. Earlier on, I had mentioned to you that I would love to draw your mind regarding the compensation policy. And Mr. Kule clearly alluded to it earlier on that there must be an intentional or deliberate compensation policy. And you also mentioned, like, you know about it. Could you please let us know what this policy entails and how does it plan to work in terms of compensating people who have maybe lost lives, you know, to wildlife, or who have lost lives to maybe this flooding, or who have lost lives, you know, for in line with these natural, you know, human disasters. So please speak to the policy and what it entails, if you know more about it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moses, and the fellow panelists and other viewers. I love the submissions of Joakim and my uncle, Kakule, whom we have suffered with, especially in these areas of Bukonzo West. In 2017, initially, UWA has not been having a compensation policy, but there has been an arrangement on revenue sharing that every 20% gate collection or money collected on the gates, every 20% is sent back to the community to do community projects that try to bridge a gap or create a relationship between the park authorities and the people. And this compensation, the amount would be given depending on how much area touches the national park. So if it is one village, for example, that touches the national park in your sub-county, so you're given money equal to that one village. If it is a whole parish or a whole sub-county, you're given as much as that. But this money has not been so used to so well, like I may say, like it compensates indeed the person. But in 2017, Parliament tabled a bill. Parliament of Uganda tabled a Uganda wildlife bill. And the bill was seeking to provide for compensation for loss of life and property caused by animals escaping from wildlife protected areas. And by that time, Honorable Ephraim Kamuntu was the minister in charge of tourism, wildlife, and antiquities. Now, the bill specified specific animals that were supposed to be considered as wild animals. So this looked at animals like buffaloes, elephants, crocodiles, hyenas, and hippos, then gorillas and chimpanzees. Now, the compensation, if ascended to by the president, it will so say that where a person is killed or suffers bodily injury or suffers damages to his or her crops or livestock by wildlife animals that have listed, this is the person who would be compensated. Now, there are other animals like monkeys in their class, could be called velvet monkeys or colbus monkeys. Those are not considered. They are called vermin animals. So their level of destruction is not as much as those that I've mentioned at first. Now, the policy the bill was passed, but is waiting for the president to assent to it. And then it can be a policy and we shall access it, and then we shall see. But also provides for fines where someone, for example, if you're caught in the national park, you are supposed to be imprisoned. At one point, people say you're supposed to be even shot. But the penalty to a person who without a permit takes hands or molests or reduces into possession of protected specimen, the same penalty is proposed. So we shall pray that at one point, if these people of the UA representative, the conservation representative was here, they should have been able to tell us a little more about this, but the policy is there. However, now, even when the policy is there, the revenue sharing will continue being there. But like Joakim pointed out and Mr. Kakule, we need a deliberate intervention, because the court systems, we need pro bono lawyers to support this, because the court system is very expensive and takes long to access justice in some of these things. Yet there will have been property lost or life lost. So we need a way of how people can access justice that is not costly. At this point, we may need pro bono lawyers who give free services to my mother who is not able even to support herself to court. I feel when the law is passed, that should be provided for either by civil society or by government itself. Now, I have been looking at the disasters that have been in the area, and like you asked Mr. Kakule, I'm going on to the side of the Nyamwamba. All these water bodies that flow, they pass through these national parks. That's why even when you put a light fence on the land, animals come and affect people passing through those rivers. Now, my thinking is on issues of desilting the rivers, which should not be a one-off thing. Should be continued desilting of these rivers. And besides, Mr. Moses, we are into road construction. I don't know why even Kasese doesn't have tarmac roads as such, because the tarmac we use is from the stones that are gravelled from the river Nyamwamba. And there are a lot of stones. If government can invest in making these stones colors and they take even to other districts, we could have, because there are a lot of stones in the rivers that when it floods, all the stones come down and they're able to destroy. Then I was thinking that government should deliberately irrigate, tap water for irrigation from these rivers. For example, where the chairman LC3 comes from, that land is very flat. Even these other sub-counties, the lower land is very flat. And if we tapped water for irrigation, we would have reduced on the volumes of water in the river Nyamwamba. And also, I'm looking at our meteorological department. We have, I think, a meteorological point in Kasese at the district, but I think they have not done enough. They should not only say the river has flooded, but the meteorological department should act as an early warning mechanism for people. They should be able to read the times and say, look here, there will be a lot of rains. Let people begin shifting. We don't have to shift rivers, to shift people when we are actually saving them from water. So the meteorological department should play an early warning role to the people in Kasese, not only Kasese, but even other parts of Uganda. And also tapping hydroelectric power from this. We have these rivers have a lot of speed. They flow from the mountain. If we can also tap hydroelectricity from these rivers, I believe we can be able to reduce on the volumes of the waters inside. But also not that only that, the human activities. Like I already mentioned, the land for people to use is very little in Kasese. So every land that is there to be used, people tap into it. That's why people have built in riverbanks. They have put riverbanks because they don't have enough land. So we could, and by the way, if you've said, let's get people and resettle them in Kasese, it may not be very easy to settle people in Kasese unless you take them to land that is reserved for the national park or for Uganda Railway or for Uganda prisons. There is a lot of land that side. So it is my prayer that some of these interventions towards controlling floods and saving the lives of the people, it's unfortunate that the interventions lie much on the side of government, which may not easily take up some of these issues unless we come to times when it is politics. Someone will promise and promise and promise. So my submission is that, but on the policy, the bill was tabled, Parliament passed it, but is waiting for the president to assent to the policy, and then we can have it so that people at least have a leeway. I've personally headed on with trying to support a family that lost their dear one. It was a 13-year-old girl who was eaten by an animal. It was a 13-year-old girl. But we tried to do our best, but the support that was received came from individuals. I remember by that time, Lieutenant Amin Kano Adulama was the chairperson LC5 Kasese. He gave in his personal support. Care International gave in support. But as from the side of government, who were just provided portion, maize flour and beans to this family. We tried to follow up on what they promised to never. So we pray that this policy is ascended to by the president, and then we have it. And I know most of the issues that do not affect many people in Uganda take long to get attention of government. Because of course, like Joakim said, tourism sector is a big honor to Uganda. So when you tamper with it, it's like you're touching the honors of the leopard, like Mzee has always said. But it is our prayer that he ascends to this bill, it becomes a policy, and we are able to also support our families. Otherwise, if you came to Kasese, the lower land, the lower side of the district is arable land. But the arable land is one again that is bordering the national park. So it is not easy to separate these two people, the farmer and the park. So we have to support means of seeing how the two can coexist, harmonious coexistence between between the national park and the people living around the protected areas. Yes, sir.
Yes, Francis, thank you very much for being a generous friend of the people of Kasese and for helping the family of that young girl. I just have one follow-up question for you immediately, for the benefit of our viewers who don't understand this technical jargon. What do you mean by desilting of rivers? For the benefit of our viewers, could you please elaborate what you mean by desilting of rivers so that they can understand it in detail?
Okay, thank you, Moses. Like I already said, the rivers, when the water volumes come from the mountainside with a lot of speed, they come with a lot of stones. And these stones go on blocking the river channel. So governments right now brought in these caterpillars, these heavy machines, to remove some of these stones and putting them on the side of the river so that the water has way, it's not blocked in any way. So the desilting specifically is on the big stones that block the river way, the river channel. Basically, that's what I can be able to submit.
Yes, thank you. Fair enough. My second follow-up question is regarding the policy. Yes. I believe that a good policy must be people-centered, and the process through which a policy is derived must be, people-centered, and the people must be consulted and things like that.
Yeah.
Were you consulted as this policy was, being formulated? Were the local people of Kasese consulted? Did they hold maybe community conversations, community talk shows to maybe consult the people of Kasese so as to be able to come with the policy that the people who are on ground understand, but also that people have contributed towards developing? So speak to the aspect of the people involvement in this policy formulation, then I will go to Mr. Kule.
Yes, before you go to Mr. Kakule, maybe, when at one point I happened to implement a project on rights, equity, and protected areas. Rights, equity, and protected areas. This was a project in Uganda, and it was specifically on Queen Elizabeth. My uncle Kakule will bear me witness. I personally participated on the compensation policy, And the district level meeting we had was at Virina Gardens. The validation meeting was at Virina Gardens. So there was some consultation that was done. And this consultation, of course, we look again at the most active, person in the community. But there was consultation that was done 2003, 2011, 12, 13, and 14. There were consultations that were done. And this were facilitated, for my side, it is CARE that was facilitating these consultations, of course, in conjunction with UA. Yeah, back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Kule, Joakim, let me come to you. Mr. Francis has given us just, snapshots, really, a snapshot of this policy and how it looks and how it looks like, rather, sorry. And things like the 20%, the 20% financial policy, things like the categorization of animals, which one should you consider as wild, which one should you consider as maybe human friendly? What is your own view about this policy? Even when we don't know much about it, at least the little we know, what do you think about it? Is it progressive? Is it one that can work for the people of Kasese? Or you think there are particular maybe articles that must be entrenched intentionally for this policy to work? So, Kule, Joakim, the floor is yours.
Thanks once again for giving me an opportunity to allude and add my voice to what has been submitted by my fellow panelist, Mr. Francis Hape, especially on the policy. You see, this policy is a good policy. It's a good policy that actually favors the areas that are around the national park. Some sub-counties like Nyakiyubu sub-county have benefited from this, from this policy. But I think what we need to consider here is the level of damage for an individual. The animals will come, damage a plantation for an individual, and maybe this plantation was someone had planted crops purposely to get something like school fees for his kids. Someone has planted his crops, and the crops are purposely planted for his home income or consumption. And now this policy, as we look at it, for it doesn't look at the affected person and an individual, but it looks at the whole community. Meaning, when they are giving out a small proportion of funding to the affected area or the sub-county, they only look at the whole community. But as an individual, whom his crops has been affected, you don't get anything. This policy do not help you as much as you would love it to support to help you. But then, this is what I would love to have in the policies maybe they could formulate. First of all, I would love a policy where the government will come in place and first consult the local people at the grassroots level. Let the people first tell the challenges that they are facing right away from the grassroots level, not starting from the bottom to the, from the top to the bottom. But the policy must be a bottom-up policy. The local population must be consulted first. They know their challenges. After knowing the challenges, and then they formulate a policy. And here I would love what actually some section that would be put in that policy. I'd love at least government to come in place and put their compulsory conversation for the people whose lands have been destroyed by elephants, for the people who have lost their lives. Like I said, in 2020, we lost one of the people, one of the farmers in Nyakiyubu sub-county. He was guarding his crops, the maize and beans, and then he was guarding them at night against elephants. So the elephants came at night and they killed the person. And that was the end of it. Now, like I said before, this person has dependents who went and buried, but that was the end of the story. Now, there is a question of how his family is now going to survive after the demise of the breadwinner in the family. This is why I'm now saying that if we must have a good policy, it must be able to look at different aspects. Like if someone has died and he has been killed by an animal and has been a breadwinner of a family, his dependents also must be compensated so that in order to enable them to survive for the next foreseeable future. Then secondly, I would love a policy that would enable the authority, that's WUA, to have monitoring and evaluation officers, then also to have people who can come on the ground, and then they observe the damage that has been caused, maybe by elephants or lions. Let's say a lion killed a person, they come and assess the damage. After assessing the damage, then they compensate a person without necessarily going to the court. Because the court process makes it hard for our people to get compensated. You see, when most of the people, when you tell them, please, you need to go to court in order for you to get compensated, they start sharing away. Because they know when it comes to court process, it's something that can drag on even for years and years and years. And yet some of the people may not be in position to sustain cases in courts of law for a long time. That's why I'm saying, I'm of the view that if we must have a policy, the policy should give WUA a chance to be the one to monitor the level of damage that has been caused by the animals. So that after
Can I make clarity?
this
Can I
damage,
make clarity?
Okay, yes, just
It's
yes.
okay.
Can I make clarity?
Francis, it's okay. Yeah, make your clarity.
Good. According to the bill, which will soon be a policy, there shall be a wildlife compensation verification committee. The committee shall be established to verify the level of damage, be it human or property. Let's see, we are talking about crops for that matter. Crops or animals, could be domestic animals. Now, the committee will verify claims where someone will claim, you present evidence to that committee without necessarily going to court. This is a committee that will be managed locally. And then will involve, of course, it will consist of representative of WUA. It will consist of a representative of the chief government valuer, someone who comes to value the property or the life that has been destroyed. It will have a representative of the ministry responsible for wildlife, that's Ministry of Tourism and these antiquities. It will have a representative of the community Wildlife Committee and a representative of the Attorney General. Now, at the representative of the community, this is where now we'll have the representative of the other family that you're talking about. And of course, the government valuer will look at the extent of damage that has been caused. And then this committee will agree together with the local person, the community person, on what indeed benefits will be able to benefit the people of the person who either is deceased or how the replacement of the property can be. So there is a committee that will do that work. I beg to submit.
Okay, thank you very much. Now I invite you, Kule, to continue. Maybe if you want to react to what he has said, you can react, then continue with your point. Thank you very much, Francis.
Thanks, Happy, actually, for giving more light on that. I think, first of all, I need to thank you for that submission. First of all, I needed to go to the river floods. I haven't tackled much about that. I think you need to allow me also to talk much about the river floods. You see, I would say Kasese is an endowed place. It's an area that is endowed by rivers, by national parks.
Maybe Moses and Kule.
Yes.
Maybe, I'm sorry for interjecting, but we may not go back to this compensation thing. Yeah? Yes. Just give me 2 minutes to have some bit of clearness, and then Joakim can continue with the issue of floods.
Joakim, hope that is okay with you. Let Francis make that point, then you can continue. It's okay.
Let him make his submission.
Now, the policy.
Yeah, let him make his submission.
The policy provides for a compensation scheme. A scheme. This is in form of a pool of, let me say, resources that will be in a reserve to specifically compensate people who have rightly been verified by the committee. Now, the committee, I mean the scheme, the compensation scheme shall be under the general administration of the board of directors under Uganda Wildlife Authority. Now, under this, a claim from an individual or family or from the community that cannot be immediately paid from Uganda Wildlife Authority compensation scheme, mark that, it shall become a public debt. I repeat that a claim that shall not have been able to be paid from the compensation policy of Uganda Wildlife Authority shall become a public debt to be paid from the wildlife compensation scheme when the funds become available. In case you launch your claim and there is no money at that very point and it has been verified, it shall be, the moment money is available, that shall be cleared. And it shall be dependent on where a person suffers bodily injury or is killed or suffers damages to his or her crops or livestock. Those are the two areas. When you suffer body injury or you're killed or you suffer damages to your crops or livestock, there you shall be cleared. You shall be compensated after the committee has verified. And of course, there is a resource user committee at every sub-county that borders the protected area. So those committees shall be co-opted on the verifying committee. I beg to submit on this issue. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Francis. I must say that has been very educative. Let us hear from Kule Joakim. Let him finish his point. Then we shall be able to, have a round of our closing remarks and way forward. So Kule, you have the floor.
Well, thanks so much, Mr. Moses. Once again, I was saying Kasese is an area that is naturally endowed with a lot of rivers, a lot of national parks, a lot of It's the only place with a salt lake, I think, in Uganda. But fast forward, I'd love it to put it forward that despite the fact that we are having floods in Kasese, we can use these rivers for the best use. Currently, we are importing foodstuffs from other countries. You know, Kasese borders Congo, and most of the food that we consume in Kasese here is from Congo. We are importing food from other countries like Egypt. Countries which solely depend on irrigation. I would love government to come forward and be able to utilize the rivers that are in Kasese. Kasese has a big low patch, a very big chunk of land where people plant crops. But most of these crops normally dry at an early age because of lack of rainfall. Yet we have rivers that are flooding. I would love government to come in place and come with a lot of innovations and technology that would enable us to tap the water that we have. And then we use this water for irrigation. Most of the countries that have high GDP, like Egypt currently has high GDP than Uganda. These countries solely depend on irrigation. South Africa also has much irrigation schemes than Uganda. Now, if we can be able to utilize our river that we have here in Kasese, we can be able to increase the production of food in Kasese, and also increase the per capita income of people of Kasese and the gross domestic product of the country as a whole. Therefore, how I wish the people in high authority on this platform, I would request that government should come in, should intervene and use the rivers of Kasese. They use the rivers for irrigation. We shouldn't look at it as only a disaster, but we should utilize these rivers to make sure that we get the best out of these rivers. I beg to submit, Mr. Moses.
Yes, thank you very much, Comrade Joakim Kule. I must say we are coming to the end of this particular conversation. So right now, I am going to pick your concluding remarks and also way forward regarding the floods, regarding the wildlife issue and the human conflict that exists in Kasese district. So I'll begin with our local council 3 chairperson, Mr. Sande Peter Kakule. Please give us your concluding remarks and also give us a way forward regarding today's conversation. Mr. Sande, you're welcome. And let me just begin with you, Kule. Then I will come to Francis, then conclude with Mr. With Mr. Sande Kakule. So Joakim Kule, please, the floor is yours.
Well, thanks so much. First of all, like Mr. Francis said, that there is a policy that has been formulated to ensure that people of Kasese and other areas of Uganda where there are national parks and people are affected by the animals in one way or another, I would love government to expedite the process of these policies and ensure that they are put in place, and maybe the president should assent on them as fast as possible in order to help the people around the national park to benefit from these policies. Secondly, I would love government to come in, like I said before, and use the rivers of Kasese, particularly for productive. Apparently, in Kasese irrigation schemes, one is in Karusandara, it's a mini scheme. Another one is in Katoru, it's also a mini scheme, and another one in Mubuku. But then we would love to see government come in place and use these rivers to make more irrigation schemes. so that Kasese has more irrigatable land that can produce crops that is going to feed the whole population of Uganda. With this modest, I beg to submit. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Comrade Kule Joakim, a human rights defender and activist. Thank you very much for sparing the time to be with us. I must say you've been an amazing panelist. Thank you very much. Just stay on the line as we conclude this conversation. Yes, Mr. Francis Happy Muhindo, the floor is yours. Give us your concluding remarks and way forward regarding this subject matter.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moses. I love the whole arrangement of this discussion. And one, it is my prayer that the President of the Republic of Uganda assents to the compensation policy under Uganda Wildlife Authority so that it becomes a law, and then we can now head on with its implementation. Two, like my colleague has just mentioned, I would still encourage the government, both local and central government, and all other partners to invest in irrigation, especially on the major rivers, Nyamwamba, especially on Nyamwamba River. The lower land is very flat and very rich with good fertile soils. Let the government and other partners invest in irrigation so that they can be able to reduce on the volumes of water in the main rivers. And then, even when we've been talking about wildlife and the river, the whole issue of human conflicts. Kasese has been in conflict since time immemorial, both civil conflict and tribal conflicts. It is my prayer that government sets a Truth and Reconciliation Commission in Kasese to understand deeply the issues that bring about conflicts in Kasese and see how to end these conflicts. Otherwise, for me, I'm always sure every planting season or when crops are ready, there is conflict. There will be conflicts between the farmers and the cattle keepers. So there's need for Truth and Reconciliation Commission to end these long-time tribal and civil conflicts in Kasese. From my side, I love the discussion, and I pray that the issues we have advanced here are sent to some power center for action. I thank you all.
Thank you very much. Peace and Reconciliation Commission is important regarding the issue of human conflict in Kasese. Thank you very much. Let's move to our local council chairperson 3, Mr. Sunday Peter Kakule. Sunday Peter, what are your last words on the show? And do you have any suggestions regarding a way forward? Well, let me just go ahead and close this conversation. Unfortunately, without hearing the last words of our chairperson, Mr. Kakule Peter, I guess this is what we call by the challenges that come with technology. But well, to our viewers and listeners, thank you very much for once again tuning into the community show. Like we always promise you, every Monday afternoon, we bring to you conversations around your community directly. This episode was casting a light in the district of Kasese and the issues around wildlife, the issues around conflict of human beings, and issues around the flooding of the area. And I have been joined by a very educative and elaborate panel. And I must say many thanks to you, our panelists, Mr. Kule Joakim, a human rights defender and activist. Thank you very much for sparing the time to be with us. Mr. Francis Happy Muhindo, a peace and conflict manager with Kabarole Research Center, Uganda. Thank you very much. And finally, Mr. Sunday Peter Kakule, who is the local council 3 chairperson of Nyakiyubu sub-county in Kasese. Unfortunately, we could not get his last words and recommendation due to network challenges, but I'm sure you managed to learn a thing or two from him during the conversation. From me to you, I am still Kedega Moses, the moderator for the community show. And until next time, please keep safe. And yes, the economy is open, but take care because life still has to be protected irrespective of the fact that we have to equally, enjoy life with the opening of the economy. Until next week, from me to you, bye-bye, and see you. God bless you as well.